You know, it's a somber day. Obviously, when you make a coaching change like this, it's not ever easy. There's nothing robotic about it. There's a lot of feelings attached to it, especially when you work closely with someone for 5 years, like Dennis Erickson and I have worked together. But I will start by saying that if you look only or exclusively at the win-loss record, you might think that this was an experiment that didn't work and assign it in that category, put it over there. It's easy to do, formula, do it. Not a problem. We didn't achieve the Rose Bowl competitive status this year that we sought, so therefore it goes into that category. But I'd argue that point. I'd argue to say that I feel like in 2011, where our football program is right now, is in a significantly healthier spot than it was 5 years ago. I think that part of the influence in that regard is just in the past couple of years, because recruiting is so key to your lifeblood of success at the high market Division I level, that in talking periodically with an NFL scout that's in our building, I could ask that person to assess how we doing, how's our talent level, what's it look like compared to last year. So that response has been very formidable and very positive about the import of talent that's competing at Arizona State and representing our football program. I'm also very mindful of September and October, and flirting with the possibility of being 10-2 or 9-3, and being pressed 6 weeks ago for the sake of recruiting to do a contract extension. Lots and lots of conversation about extend him, and my point being at the time, no, let's finish. We've got, to put it in a football analogy, we've got the fourth quarter to play, which basically is the month of November. Let's finish the season, and then we'll make an assessment at the end of the year of where we stand and what we want to do and what we'll look at going forward. So ultimately, November was a particularly challenging and difficult month for us, and for whatever reason, you know, the nuances in our program didn't lend itself to finishing on a capable note from where we started. So I feel like that going forward, that we have built under Dennis's watch a very, very strong platform from which to launch. So there was so much groundwork and plowing done to build a roster over 1 year and then over 2 years. You know early on that Dennis was starting a record number of true freshmen, you know, in the first part of his career. And then those young men were growing up, but they were growing up not by redshirting and getting stronger in the weight room. They were growing up out on the football field because we had to have them out on the field. So you go through those painstaking periods of roster growth and recruitment and player development and get to a maturity last year and this year. And last year, obviously, we lost I don't know how many games by 1 to 3 points. I mean, we flirted with it. And so people were very tolerant, thinking, oh, you know, we're actually turning this. Our players are really, really tough. And so we go into this year and we play the first part of the season with high standards, high goals, and battling quite well, and play beautiful football in the first couple of months, even on the road. I think that the University of Illinois game was one where we were so hurt by not performing on the road the way we thought we could. And what do? We come back and we play beautifully at the University of Utah. We play a hard-fought game in Eugene that we didn't blink, that we were heavily competitive in that game, and so it was a matter of maturation. So you felt like, okay, we're headed, we're moving. The guts of the team is absolutely maturing and ready to play winning football. And for reasons that are will somewhat be mysterious, we simply did not deliver the goods in the month of November, and that's led us to today. So I have two themes. One is to be appreciative of Coach Erickson for 5 years of really hard work at Arizona State. And the other is the note of that appreciation, not just for his hard work, but for positioning us even in a stronger position than we were. I think a deeper dive beyond the record and in the circumstances that he was building a program should be reviewed prior to just saying 2011 was the end-all, be-all. And it's just a one-dimensional evaluation. So having said all that, I'll stop and receive questions.
Lisa, what would be the big factors that led to the decision to change the leadership, given what you just said about the positives of Coach Erickson?
Well, I can say that in my meeting with Dennis this morning, where we discussed this, we were both very focused on the same challenges that faced us in November, and that sends a little bit of a tremor through the land. That's something that you think, where are we really? Because as you're progressing the first part of the season with a great deal of confidence and verve and wherewithal, and then you get into the November months, and it wasn't just one unfocused or game at UCLA. It was some psychological aspect of our program that repeated itself again and again and again, and which led to a lot of self-inflicted issues. So, I think, and this is something, of course, in our regular Monday morning meetings, Coach Erickson and I would discuss, but that was certainly a part of the discussion this morning, so he was completely understanding of that. But it wasn't just not winning the football games. Maybe it was how we didn't win the football games that's put the yellow caution light on where we should go going forward, or changing going forward.
You talked about this season not being able to finish it off. How much of it was because his first year they won 10 games and never really got back to that level? How much of a cumulative effect was it?
Well, I think you allow anybody the opportunity to build it. Then after that first year when that large senior class graduated that he was going to work from scratch to build it back up. So you're going to allow anybody the opportunity to grow the program up. And that was going to be prevalent through some tough years. Those couple of years after his first year weren't easy while we were trying to resolve issues and recruit great players and elevate the way we played football. So those first couple of years, you're evaluated basically on who you are able to bring into the program in attracting great players. And in hiring Dennis in the first place, one of the things that I was quite aware of is this guy has a coast-to-coast network. So he has deep roots all over the country, from Miami to the Pacific Northwest, certainly to California, and here in the state of Arizona, where we potentially could tap into rich recruiting classes. And that's precisely what happened in that regard. But the completion of that on the football field, we didn't realize it through the end of 2011 season. So when you look at the first part of it, you can see being on plan. Players coming in, players maturing. You like the level of talent. You could look at one position on our football team, and that in particular is the quarterback position, and realize that that's a significantly different look through the young men in our quarterback position right now than what we had in the past. So that's just symbolic of a bigger picture. You can look at how he managed injury and depth this year by plugging in another talented player, maybe less experienced, maybe younger, but another talented player that kept us in the hunt for the better part of the year. So those first few years were building process years, and I would give him a great grade in the building process, but it was the completion of that towards the end where we began to not realize the on-field presence all the way through the season that ultimately led to the decision.
Was there a certain time in the month of November that you made the decision that it was time for a change in leadership?
I wouldn't say there was a day or a moment that said that was it after a particular game. I felt like that the UCLA game was something that maybe some of the old road game bugaboos hit us, and that lack of focus and the frustration would resolve itself, and we'd get our game back on going up to Washington State. And going up with the team and watching the team in pregame, and their attitude around the hotel was fantastic. It was absolutely readiness to play football. There was no indication of distraction or lack of confidence or anything to that end. But obviously the results on the football field down the stretch were what they are. We all witnessed the same thing, and then leading to the next game and ultimately the last game of the year. So I can't say that there was one particular moment, but a collection of really tough situations in November that would raise a concern about the ability of our football program fundamentally, because I guess the word has always been, no matter how innovative or exciting your offense is, the infantry is going to win the game, which means you've got to block and tackle. You've got to block and tackle ultimately, no matter what you do in your beautiful or creative offensive schemes. So that became an issue for us down the stretch. So I would say not one moment, but a collection of it.
Can you put your finger on why there were times that there was a lack of focus?
I wish I could. I wish I could understand. I posed that question often enough to Coach Erickson, and it was difficult because of the dramatic change, the dramatic from how we played and then to how we played, and so the big shift was something that not something that I've necessarily witnessed before, and according to Dennis, he's never witnessed it either. But it became prevalent in the program. It became some kind of a challenge or an issue that we were having a hard time ridding ourselves of. And I'm not sure that I would attribute. There may be some physical challenges with injury. There may be some leadership presence and challenge without a couple of key guys, Brandon McGee being one and Omar Bolden being the other, that could hold things together in tough times on the defensive side of the football, for example. But all those things kind of made for a blend that was, we weren't able to overcome that psychological part of our own challenges to pull it together. So it's a combination of things probably. I may have said that earlier, and I could have limited how many words I just said.
Can you describe the profile of the new coach that you hope to hire?
Yes, I think so. I would tell you from watching especially Pac-12 football over the course of the last few years, I think players really enjoy playing in these creative, innovative offensive sets. I think it's very appealing to a fan base to watch that. Now, having said that, I'll go back to my earlier comment, which is infantry wins the contest. So the blend of fundamental execution and a fundamentalist that's going to have a team that blocks and tackles and executes those kinds of things beautifully well, coupled with that kind of creativity, offensive creativity, are certainly a part of it on the way we look, the way we represent ourselves as we play football. I'll also look for a candidate who cares very much about the players that he coaches, and I say that with several things in mind. One is the ability to attack the concept of leadership development. So sometimes you inherit natural leaders, and sometimes you work very hard at creating leadership development. So, leading young men and developing them as young men and with their characters is also a key component. You all have been very generous in writing about the academic success that we've had at Arizona State. It has become part of the fabric. Through Dirk's tenure and now continuing on through Dennis's tenure, we have been very proud of the fact that our graduation record and our academic report card are among the leaders in the Pac-12 conference. So that's a cultural component of the program, that an expectation of a new coach coming in would continue that theme, and that the undergraduate experience attached to football is both academic and athletic. So that's a key part also. So development of young men and understanding the culture of academic success at ASU and continuing that is key. And lastly, Tim, I'd say that we live in this fantastic state, in this beautiful metropolitan area with our home base in Tempe, and I'd like our new head coach to be that kind of face and ambassador for Arizona State as our head football coach, to our corporate sponsors, to our donor constituency, to our municipalities that surround us. I'd like that person to be the meet and greet, comfortable, public speaking, energetic person that you sit in the room with and you feel really, really positive. You feel the energy, you feel the dignity, and you feel the engagement and the commitment to Arizona State. And so this person becomes this great face for Arizona State and is also a unifying person. rallying the troops, so to speak, behind and for Arizona State. So it's a tall order, but it can be accomplished.